All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, as always. Had a haircut. Thanks for noticing, Drew. We're going to talk James Harden, who was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. We're going to talk Dolphins, Chiefs, Seahawks, Ravens, two massive games, and then a less massive game. A nice little sherry to close out the evening, Giants at Raiders. But let's start with James Harden, traded to the Clippers. Big movement in their odds. Clippers are plus 700 to win the West. They are 13-1 to win the NBA title, plus 350 to win their division. What do you make of the trade, Drew?
Well, who could have seen this coming, Jay?
Yeah.
No, I think this is a fine trade. Both parties seem to be kind of benefiting a small amount from this. Definitely the Clippers benefit from it. I'm not exactly sure what the long-term plan is here for the Sixers and how they intend to build that team around Embiid going forward. But definitely have to tell you the
number 2 in the West right now, it's the LA Clippers. I think the 2 seed and home court advantage against the Suns in the Western Conference, round 2 of the playoffs is very live. I think the Clippers team is grading out to me as the number 2 team in the West already, and Harden I think is a good fit with the rest of these vets. You have an elite offensive player still in the NBA with Kawhi Leonard. You have an elite defensive player in the NBA with Paul George. And I like just adding another playmaker to the mix there just makes them that more dynamic in crunch time against elite opposition. So ultimately, do I think they can win a game 7 in Denver against the Nuggets? No, I don't. Do I relish the opportunity to bet against James Harden in a game 7 in Denver against the Nuggets? I do. I think that will be a fun opportunity. But basically, every other team in the West not named the Nuggets has flaws. And they're already being exposed, which I think is definitely noteworthy. Phoenix, I would say their depth is not as good as we thought it might be. Injuries just in general being a factor this early in the season for the Suns is weird and problematic. Then similarly, the Lakers don't have shot creation or just really playmakers outside of LeBron with the ball in his hand. The Warriors look like they have a lot to figure out in terms of who their best 5 players to close a game are. Everybody else everybody else looks like at best second tier with the Mavericks, kind of leading the pack there. So yeah, this was a nice move for the Clippers. The Clippers should be the second choice in the West, in my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily flip-flop the prices you're seeing on the screen between the Suns and the Clippers, but I would definitely put the Clippers ahead of the Suns. So maybe this is just I'm not buying into the Suns kind of commentary. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Clippers are the second best team in the West. And I think the best way to just kind of conceptualize what their odds should be is just compare them directly to Phoenix and just look at the players as they match up. And this is a bit simplistic and reductive, but I think Kawhi, when he's healthy, is a wash with Durant. The way that Kawhi closed last season, he closed like he's like a top 5-6 player in the NBA. I think Harden is slightly better than Beal, and I think Booker is slightly better than George. And then I prefer the Clippers supporting cast beyond that, kind of to a material degree between Mann and Tucker and Zubats and Westbrook in this version. I think that the Clippers just have a better team than Phoenix. Phoenix already dealing with injury issues. I think the Nuggets are still the rightful favorite in the West, but I don't think they're this like scary behemoth juggernaut. Like they scraped over 50 wins last season in the regular season. They didn't really play anyone in the playoffs, and they don't really have any depth. And I think they are the best team in the West because Jokic is the best player, and that starting 5 is the best starting 5 in the West by margin. But I don't think they're super intimidating. And so I don't really know what to think of the Warriors and where to put them in everything. I feel pretty confident that I'm certainly higher on the Clippers than market, lower now on the Suns than market. And I don't buy the Lakers at all after watching these first few games. They do not look, I don't really see the upside there. That team just doesn't seem to fit. The Warriors are the weird one where usually a team of the Warriors ilk, you would say, is a team that is more built for the playoffs because they have these older guys who are going to take the regular season off and they're going to be a better playoff team. I weirdly think they're a much better regular season team just because Chris Paul looks excellent right now. Yeah. And I think that he is still an excellent player for the regular season. Once you get into the playoffs and Luka Doncic in round 1 is picking on him on switches every single time like he did 2 years ago when Paul was 2 years younger and more spry, then I think it becomes a serious issue. And I don't think Paul is going to be as useful in the playoffs. So I think the Warriors are the 4th team in the West, but I agree. I think the Clippers should be more like plus 450 in the West.
I was all we're pretty close in lockstep here. I will just say that as I look at the Warriors, Chris Paul's not in that closing 5. It's probably Gary Payton. And that's for defensive reasons. I don't think Klay Thompson's in the closing 5, and that's hard to say because you kind of need his shooting out there. Like I don't exactly know what the best 5 for the Warriors to close in, but if Curry is going to play like he played 2 years ago in the finals, and he's going to be the best player on planet Earth, then the Warriors still can't be completely tossed, I guess.
No, they can't be tossed. But here's the problem with the Warriors is that Andrew Wiggins has kind of sucked for a year.
He's
not done anything for a year. Right. I understand that last year he had personal matters that he was dealing with. So maybe you give him, you write that off and you don't use that to judge him. But he's not been good to start this season either. And I mean, game 1 they closed with Kuminga. Over Wiggins, which is a good sign for Kuminga, but not a good sign for Wiggins.
And I think Kuminga's in their closing 5. I think Kuminga and Gary Payton Jr. are in their closing 5.
Well, they may on merit be, because I think that team, the way that they're built to win is just get defense and athleticism around Stephen Curry and just let him kind of be Patrick Mahomes and try and put up enough.
I got one final note for you though, Jay.
Yeah.
You slated the Nuggets bench, which means you haven't been watching very much Nuggets basketball.
Like Reggie Jackson?
Reggie Jackson is the 9th best player on this team. Christian Braun is fine. Peyton Watson is somehow managing like a block every first quarter. I don't understand how this is possible, but he's coming off the bench and he's just been immediately impactful. Zeke Naji, I think, is actually good. I think he's like a decent, good backup big. These guys are making plays, and Reggie Jackson, if he's your 9th best player, I think you're fine.
Julian Strother as well. I do think the one thing with the Nuggets depth is that everyone looks better when they're on the court with Jokic. And I mean that in a good way for the Nuggets going forward. It was the same with guys in Houston just look better as role players next to peak James Harden because all you have to do is just play defense and then stand in the corner and make open threes. Jokic just makes everyone around him so much better. So, I think definitely a better start than expected for the Nuggets. Just last thing before we move on to Dolphins-Chiefs. I had a lot of people message me about Russell Westbrook winning 6th Man of the Year. Now that Harden has been traded there. And we'll see. By the time this podcast drops, maybe news has come out about the starting lineup on the Clippers. But I suspect that Westbrook is going to remain the starter. I don't understand really why he would go to the bench, because here's the thing with Westbrook and 6th Man of the Year. To win 6th Man of the Year, he needs to play 28 to 30 minutes a game. And if he's going to play 28 to 30 minutes a game, then why wouldn't he just be the starter? Because he's going to overlap with Harden a fair bit anyway. And I think he wants to start. And so why are you going to make Russ aggrieved by putting him on the bench if he's going to be playing 28 to 30 minutes? And if he's off the bench not playing 28 to 30 minutes, then he can't win 6th Man of the Year anyway. So I don't really – and he's going to spot start as well if he were coming off the bench. So I don't really see the path. I wouldn't put a line through it, but I'm not in love with it. What do you think?
That's cold. That's some cold water, and I think it's worthwhile. And also it puts us back in the situation we were in last year, which is the only way he becomes a 6th man is if he gets demoted into it. And that has stink on it that I don't think really gets the voters that excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the winner of this award is someone that is not front of mind for anyone yet. I do think the best candidate, if I was to make a favorite right now, it would be Chris Paul, just because he's playing really well. I thought it was really instructive that when Clay sat the other night and it was Moses Moody who came into the starting lineup, not Chris Paul. So that signifies that he's not going to get the spot starts, which sunk quickly last year. And so if Paul's just ironed into a bench role, then, and if he plays 65 games and stays healthy, he's probably still the best player who's coming off the bench in terms of regular season output. And I think the Warriors will be good in the regular season if they're a top 4 seed and he's still Chris Paul. Then I think he will win, but he's got some bullets he's got to dodge as well. So certainly he's not a runaway favorite or anything.
Yeah, like the bet I would have if I could only have one right now would be probably Tim Hardaway Jr. maybe. Tough to see the Mavericks getting to the win threshold that they would need to get a 6th man of the year home, but
he's going to score. Yeah,
he's going to score, right? And he's playing 30 minutes a game. He is a lot of the offense when Doncic is not on the court. So I think that's going to carry on, but it's real. I mean, the 6th man of the year award right now, it's throwing darts.
Yeah. I'd like Karis LeVert if Karis LeVert was good. I don't think he is all that good. He's got the role and the opportunity, I think, but I don't think he's that good. Couple teams that are good: Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs 2.5 point favorites. Still juice there for the most part, inching towards 3. Total is 50.5 in Frankfurt, Germany. The Dolphins got Jalen Ramsey back, who graded magnificently by PFF and had the interception and kind of looked like Jalen Ramsey out there. Do you think that Ramsey returning kind of revolutionizes this Dolphins team and makes their outlook look different going forward, but particularly in this game against Mahomes?
I think it depends on how well he plays. There were times last year where you saw some slippage in the quality of play, and I thought the knee injury and potentially slowing him down a step could expose him against certain teams. Now, against the Chiefs and Mahomes, it probably doesn't really matter that much because you have a couple of players with game-breaking speed, but they can't seem to catch the ball. So I'm not sure Ramsey's ultimately going to be, exposed, so to speak, in Frankfurt here this week. But I think the Dolphins, they need all the help they can get. Like, this is a team that desperately is underperforming on defense, considering some of the talent, particularly in that front 7. Don't exactly understand why the Dolphins are struggling so badly in run defense. And I definitely don't understand, the kind of underpinnings of a Vic Fangio style of defense just aren't obvious to me at all so far. So maybe they ultimately get there. And you know what? I think probably every year that I've been doing media around betting, this time of year, we would have talked about the Chiefs defense being bad and what's wrong with these guys and will they get it? And is that going to impact the Chiefs title chances? And it never really mattered because by the time we got to the end of the season, Spagnuolo had the guys playing better and at least to the level where they weren't the reason that the Chiefs were not winning games. So Dolphins will probably get there as well. I believe in Fangio as a coach. They have enough talent on this team. Ramsey is a huge upgrade over who they have. But there's definitely still soft spots here. And I particularly wonder what's going on with the rush defense because there's no reason that these guys should be bottom 5 in EPA per play allowed on the ground running. It just doesn't check out considering the talent you have, particularly, on the defensive line. So, I'd like to say that the Dolphins are being underrated by market right now, but I don't think they are. I think this is a bet on the Chiefs spot. I think the Chiefs in general match up fairly well against a Dolphins team, with their offense combined with the Dolphins defense. The fact that Mahomes is, such a dynamic scrambler and the fact that the Dolphins don't really have anyone that can lock down a tight end, that seems like a problem up against the Chiefs. So I think Kansas City kind of being able to play with a positive game state here and put this one, into the same sort of environment that the Eagles did to the Dolphins, I think is realistic. The one factor that I think is worth bringing up, people everybody's taking their shot at Mahomes this week. Play his worst game as a pro coming off the flu. Like, all right, take a deep breath. And I also think I do think the Chiefs' decision making about what their travel over to Germany relative to Miami, who went earlier, I didn't love. So kind of prepared for a bad surprise on Sunday morning, but I think if this is a neutral game, if this is we get the best of the Chiefs and the best of the Dolphins, then I'm fine laying 2.5 with Kansas City.
To me, it's crazy that NFL teams just don't have a uniform approach to the travel to Europe.
I don't get it.
Surely there's just a medically, scientifically proven optimal way to do it, and everyone should just do that. And you would think that means just going earlier and adjusting quicker. So I don't understand that at all. But hopefully Patrick Mahomes can quarterback jet lagged better than he can with the flu. I think this is a really interesting test case for just how important a number one cornerback is and the ripple effects of that across the defense, because and it's so difficult to isolate because the NFL is always such a small sample size and there's always so many moving parts within those samples. But like, I just think back to Trayvon Diggs going out and the Cowboys looking completely different, Trey White going out, the Bills looking completely different, and now the Bills have just traded for Rasul Douglas. They're going to look completely different again. Are they just going to flip back because now they have a legit corner as a number one? And so Ramsey, I mean, we will see, because those Miami corners were just comically bad with Eli Apple and what's left of Xavier Howard has quietly been bad for a year now. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it's probably not as relevant against the Chiefs. So I guess Ramsey could line up on Kelsey a bit, but we will see. Definitely. Well, I can't even say definitely the most compelling game of the week, because there's like three other really, really good ones. We'll get to one of them, Seahawks-Ravens.
I guess here's the factor I want your opinion on. So it didn't mention anything about the Dolphins offense, which is the best single unit in all of football. They have a rushing attack that's pretty dynamic, and the Chiefs have been run-onable against for whatever reason. I don't know if it's injuries to the linebacking core. I don't know if it's just the way they are, scheming and the game states they've been in. But whatever the case is, do you think there is a case to be made that the Dolphins can play keep away here with kind of leaning on their running attack?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, Nick Bolton going on IR for the Chiefs is a potentially meaningful thing for their defense. I just come back to the fact that Mike McDaniel has never won a big game, and that's I guess a mainstreamy talk show opinion to be like, this guy's never won a big game, but he's never won a big game. And this team couldn't get the play calls in the Buffalo game. Delay of game, the first snap against the Eagles or whatever. Like, there's just weird stuff that seems to happen in these games in terms of them being able to run the ball. Armstead still out, hurts them on that front. And I do think that is the way that you beat the Chiefs. It's this perfect blend of, obviously you want to keep Mahomes off the field, and if you can do that by running the ball, then that's two birds with one stone if you're able to be efficient there. And the Chiefs' pass defense has been excellent this season. So, I mean, we'll see. I think you would think that is probably the pathway to do it, is to be able to run the ball against the Chiefs and make it a bit of a shorter game, which is weird to say about the Dolphins offense, which is so explosive in its own right. I suspect ultimately this is just going to be a shootout, and it will be just the bounces of the ball that decide it. But certainly this is going to be a referendum on Tua and Mike McDaniel. If the Chiefs lose this game, I'm sure they'll be fine still. In the scheme of things. If the Dolphins lose this game, then I think they start to get seen in a bit of a different light, and they lose a bit of their ceiling. Anyway, we will see.
Okay.
Let's jump to Seahawks-Ravens, but first a reminder that two of the NFL's best quarterbacks face off this week on Sunday night. Don't miss Josh Allen and the Bills facing off against Joe Burrow and the Bengals in Cincinnati. Coverage of the AFC clash begins at 7 Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. As Matthew Berry said on our show the other day, actually a good game. Bills coming off of Bears Chargers, which was not an amazing game. All right, Seahawks-Ravens, also actually a good game. Ravens, this line is bumped up to Ravens 5.5 now, total 43. It was hovering around 4.5 for a little bit. Do you agree with the market's optimism about Baltimore?
I do. I think Baltimore is the number one defense currently playing in the NFL. I think they have an amazing defensive coordinator, and I think that's where this handicap starts, because for all of the positives you can lay at the feet of Geno, he still is a little bit schemable against. Right? There are certain defensive schemes that you can use to really bring out the worst in him. The Chiefs adjusted into that. The Browns adjusted into that last week, and it was like, what is happening? Like, this entire offense has just completely lost the plot here, until we were in the absolute end stages and they were just, throwing it all against the wall. So I think that the Ravens defense can absolutely cause the Seahawks offense to look a little bit suspect here. In general, I don't think that the Seahawks have a top 10 offense, which is where they are right now in DVOA, and I think the market rating is kind of right in that range as well for this unit. I would have them closer to about 15th best offense, and it is because of the inconsistencies of Geno Smith. So a lot more concern about how the Seahawks play, either score an answer or come back in this game if the Ravens can get out to a lead. I think the Ravens are schemed well to be able to front run a little bit here. I know that the Seahawks did make a move to bring in an interior pass rusher. I think that will bear fruit as we go through the season, but I don't see that mattering much here because that is a tough matchup against an interior of this Ravens offensive line that's playing super well right now. Their center, Tyler Linderbaum, is absolutely killing it. Ronnie Stanley has been back to his all-pro level last couple of weeks. So I think the Ravens can do a decent job of pass protection here. I think the Ravens can pick apart some of the soft spots of this Seahawks defense. And I think they can play from ahead and cover a 5.5 point spread. I don't have a lot of strong opinions on the card this week, but I do think this should be a 6 or a 6.5, depending on how you handicap some of the injuries for the Ravens. And I think ultimately the Ravens are going to win by a touchdown or more.
Yep, I agree with you there. It's funny, after Lamar was, all world against the Lions, basically the best game he's played. I think indisputably the best game he's played statistically since his 2019 MVP season. And then he goes into Arizona. And that was just like the definition of a guy just messing around. Like, you saw the touchdown pass where he's leaning back off of one leg. They just didn't really seem super invested in the game, which was sandwiched between two much bigger games against, I guess, NFC contenders in the Lions and the Seahawks. To me, this Seahawks team is just the definition of a wild card football team, a team that goes 10-7, maybe sneaks to 11-6, and has no real ceiling beyond potentially winning one playoff game. I think their defense is better than expected, and they fortified it with, trading for Williams, adding some help on the interior as well. Witherspoon has been phenomenal and really improved their back end to cover up for Tariq Woolen not having as good a year as last year. So I think the defense is solid, and the defense right now is 11th in EPA per play. I think that's a reasonable expectation what to expect from them going forward. I think the issue is that Geno has never come back to being the guy that he was in the first 5 weeks of last season. He throws the ball up for grabs, and the offensive line just isn't very good. And with all that happening, I think that caps the ceiling of the offense. And I think this Ravens defense, to your point, is playing like certainly a top 3 unit in the league. And I think that they will win this game with relative ease as well. Seahawks really should have lost at home to PJ Walker. And if that interception that comes off Jamal Adams' helmet, if that just falls to the ground incomplete, then the Seahawks probably aren't driving the length of the field against Myles Garrett and co.
Or if he scrambles for 4 yards there and converts that set of downs, game's over.
Yep, exactly right. Seahawks, wild card team. All right, before we get to two teams not in the wild card mix, the New York Giants and Las Vegas Raiders, a reminder that Bet the Edge isn't the only show every weekday during the NFL season. You can also check out the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, Connor Rogers, and myself. It airs live on Peacock at noon Eastern, re-airs at 4 p.m., and is available on our NFL on NBC Sports YouTube channel, as well as wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are recording now on Halloween, just before the trick-or-treating commences, and the Halloween happy hour show that we just did today, Drew, some of the most ridiculous television I've ever been a part of. Matthew Berry in a Luigi costume that he purchased at Party City about 50 minutes before air, going full Italian-ish accent. It sounded way more like Stringer Bell on The Wire than an Italian Luigi accent, but the viewers can make what they want out of that. Talented,
Yeah.
formerly talented Mr. Roto, not good at the accent game.
That's entertainment.
Yeah, basically that was it. Except try doing that for like 10 minutes. He did it for like 10 minutes during like Jahan Dotson picking him off waivers and stuff, but in the Luigi accent. Really, high variance television, we'll call it. Giants and Raiders, two pretty low variance football teams, two decidedly on the bad spectrum teams. Let's start with the Raiders, who are 2.5-point favorites. Looks like Daniel Jones will play in this game, but Jimmy Garoppolo on Monday night, and obviously he missed those three throws to Devontae Adams, two of them comically wide open. The other one probably should have been a touchdown on the back right corner of the end zone. But to me, Drew, what stood out more than those missed throws, is since when did Jimmy Garoppolo patter his feet like that whenever he feels pressure? Like he's just dancing around in there. I've never seen him do that to that extent. He just looks like a broken quarterback at the moment. I'm not sure if it's to do with the concussion or his injuries, but I was operating with the assumption that the Raiders were like a slightly below average, 1.5, 2 points worse than your average team on neutral. Last night in a game that they had things handed to them on a platter, and the fact they couldn't cover was an absolute disgrace. What do you make of this team going forward in this matchup?
Yeah, that was an absolute disgrace. I mean, honestly, like watching it in real time, it didn't ever feel like the Raiders were in the game, and yet they were never out of the game. And down the stretch, they had felt like they could have had 3 chances to get through the back door there, and just didn't ever make anything out of it. The passes to Adams are the obvious standout. What the hell's? But overall, it just didn't feel like Garoppolo was ready to play. Like something's not right, pretty clearly. And I don't know if it's him protecting an injury, thinking about an injury, or literally having a head injury. But whatever the case is, he was absolutely useless last night. The pick he threw into double coverage to Adams early in the game, like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh man, get AOC off the bench right now. Like he does not have it tonight. Like there's no reason, or I've never seen Garoppolo make a decision so poor. And exactly like you said, every other time there was interior pressure, or the Lions elected to bring a blitz, Garoppolo just did his tap dancing routine and got sacked. And it was pretty miserable effort all around. And does a week or 6 days, I don't even have a week, does 6 days kind of fix his whatever is going on with him and his ability to play the quarterback position? Probably not. And so this is maybe an opportunity to buy low on the Giants, who are coming off of the worst offensive half of football I've seen any team ever execute. They had six catches for 7 yards or something insane like that for their receiving core on Sunday, like impossibly low. But I guess the key takeaway here is the Raiders defense last night. They still kept coming. They kept playing. They were getting run over. They were getting road graded, and they still kept trying. They kept that team hanging in there somehow, some way. And they were on the field for, it felt like the entire game. Like it really, really felt like they were on the field for a lot. So now the fact that they are, coming off of that physical and effort that was that big of a letdown, and now they have to play on a short week against a Giants team that's potentially getting their quarterback back. This looks like Giants to me. And I can barely believe I'm saying this, because I kind of think at one point this season I was already like, you know what? I don't need to bet any Giants games this season. We can just let those happen in a vacuum, pretend like they're not actually happening. But there's not a ton to bet this week. I think Giants are a bet on the money line. Honestly, like forget the 2.5 points. I think you're just betting them outright.
Yep, I agree. There is something in the water in Las Vegas, and I speak of the water. Not that I purchase in Vegas hotel rooms for $26, but the water being consumed by Jimmy Garoppolo and his friends.
Let me kind of actually put a finer point on this. Beyond Jimmy Garoppolo not playing well, Josh McDaniels didn't have that team prepared well. Like, I didn't even understand really what the scheme decisions were, or like what was going on and why there were no adjustments. Like, as soon as you kind of got the sense of like, well, we get into halftime, you don't have a single wide receiver catch a target. Like, what? Huh? Like, that was the plan. Like, we're not even going to try the short stuff over the middle. We're not going to try to get Devontae Adams engaged with some screen passes. Like, it was really, really strange the way that McDaniels called that game. And I think he's lost this team, in my opinion. He's lost the locker room. He's lost Devontae Adams, and I think he got as good an effort as you could ask out of an overmatched defense last night. And good luck getting those guys back up for the next game.
Yeah, he is just not a good coach, and I'll leave it at that. But he's lost Josh Jacobs as well. The Josh Jacobs comments after the game were magnificent. Not my job to fix this game, and it's not your job, Josh. It's the other Josh's job, and he's not very good. I do think with this game, I'd say the two most important things. One, I think the Giants have an average defense, which is a step up from where they were. They've played well lately. Dexter Lawrence is an absolute monster, and Kayvon Thibodeau gets all the press because he's gotten the sacks, but Kayvon Thibodeau's got a bit of Vic Beasley in his numbers. Dexter Lawrence,
he does have a bit of Vic Beasley. That's a good call, good throwback.
Whereas Dexter Lawrence is more like Grady Jarrett-ish, where he's actually good and actually wreaking true havoc on the interior. I know it's Zach Wilson and whatever, but he's still had 15 pressures against the Jets. It's insane.
Yeah, he was good.
I know their O-line isn't good, but still, that is immense. And as sad as it is to say, even with the Daniel Jones that we've seen this year, is a vastly better quarterback than the Jimmy Garoppolo who has shown up the past couple of games. So I have more faith in the Giants' defense, more faith in their quarterback situation. Also, their weapons are not great, and we'll see what happens with Waller. But Jalen Hyatt is getting a bit more involved in the offense. So is Wan'Dale Robinson. Saquon Barkley looked great against the Jets. And while they're not as good as Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and Jacoby Myers, I'm not sure how much those guys care about the Las Vegas Raiders at this point. So, yeah, I'm with you on the Giants. I think they will win this game. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Please rate and subscribe if you're listening to us in podcast form. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick. We'll see you soon.